Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Last Best Hope for Conversation, your newest Babylon 5 podcast. Joining me today around the table is Lou.
Hello.
Karen.
Hello.
Who is the birthday girl as we're recording this.
Happy birthday to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I am, as always, Jesse Jackson. We are talking Parliament of Dreams. We are still on season 1 of Babylon 5. This is originally aired back in February 1994. It is season 1, episode 5. So what were your thoughts about this one? Karen, let's start with you.
I really, really like this one. There was a lot of the main cast in this episode, and without getting too nitty about all the details, it gave us a lot of information about the backgrounds and where they've come from and that sort of. And I dug the little ceremonies that we got, and I like the relationship between Sinclair and Catherine as well. So
yeah, how about you, Lou?
Yeah, I'm on the same boat as Karen. I thought this episode flowed the best. There was hardly any clunky moments at all, so it worked really well, and it was a great vehicle for exploring the backgrounds of the various races and the players that are in this Babylon 5 universe. So I liked it from that perspective quite a bit. And it was doing the multiple storylines thing, which I always find pretty effective for television. And I like the relationship between Sinclair and I don't know the girl's name off the top of my head.
Catherine.
That was fun. It had a kind of a Casablanca vibe to it. So that was pretty good. And the ending on this one was that same type of thought-provoking ending. But on first viewing when it ended, because, and I don't want to get into specifics right now, so maybe I'll save it for later. But at first I thought it was missing something. But then when I sat back and I thought, you know what? Sometimes a picture is worth 1,000 words. You don't really need to say anymore. So I really like the ending of this episode quite a bit as well.
Yeah, this is 2 episodes in a row where they had an ending that I really liked. But this one, I agree. I thought it was really well done. And the idea of, and we'll get more into details of this, but the idea of trying to show what is your dominant religion, and Sinclair ends up saying, well, we don't have a dominant religion, and gives everyone. So I agree. I think this so far is one of the best episodes of the first season. I think they're starting to click. We get Bill Mummy added, which I think adds an extra kind of flavor, the way he plays, his character, Veer. It's really nice. It's really, really well done. So this is
Bill
good.
Mummy is linear.
Linear, that's right. Yeah, yep. Veer is good. Yeah, exactly.
First.
Yeah. So yeah, really nice. All right, so let's start out with G'Kar possibly, or someone trying to kill G'Kar. Lou, start with you. Give me your thoughts on this storyline.
Very Ferengi.
Yeah.
It's all this subterfuge and whatnot. It played out fairly well, though. It wasn't too predictable, so I did like that. And I thought this was the first episode where the makeup for this race really worked for me. Like the moldings allowed them to wrinkle their brows, and so they were very expressive, which I was surprised because I don't recall seeing that as much in the other episodes. So whether they modified the appliances slightly or whatever, but it just felt very natural. So there was able to read the reactions that quite a bit, and we get to see some weird eating habits.
Yes.
I have no idea what that thing was. That big, was it a heart or was
I don't know, but he
has those 2 little live lobsters.
Yeah. They're actually they're crawfish.
Right.
Oh, crawfish, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I felt kind of little SpongeBob SquarePants or something.
Yeah, it was great. I loved when he said, "Don't go anywhere."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
When he scolds the little.
It was kind of funny because you knew he was never really going to take a bite out of it, because every time he got to go close to it, he would, he was waiting for the cue for whatever that was going to happen next. So yeah, it was pretty well done. The only clunky moment that I didn't understand was, why did the assassin have Earth-type glasses, especially with those frames, because they don't have hardly any ears. So what?
Right.
I don't know.
Why
Were they out of budget and the actor had to use his actual real reading glasses? I don't know, but he would have just been better off to have like a pair of spectacles that he popped on his nose or something like that. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So the explanation for that in Lurker's Guide, and this is something that isn't vital to the plot, but JMS said that the Jakar's race, the Narns, are very sensitive about having any kind of physical derailment, and so in other words, they wouldn't come up with glasses to help you because that is not the way their race works.
So maybe this guy found some Earth glasses somewhere,
that was
realized they
enough.
helped him. And,
yes. So that was the and yeah, it did make for a fun image, right? This whole spectacles and doing that. It was
no
funny,
pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. And we got interesting shot of Jakar's chest, torso area.
Yes,
that was interesting. So I think that goes back to that was Lando you were talking about. They had but Jakar has very interesting physiology as well. So
well, yeah, and you think about as the writer, you're like, do the makeup artist go, damn it, now we've got to go through, because normally, he's on this very elaborate, thick with gloves and this whole almost armor. And now then if we're having him in like a robe, like, okay, now we've got to do the special effects all the way for his chest to show that, he has kind of a similar, like a reptilian skin. How about you, Karen? Thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that storyline was fun for one, and the first thought I had was, and he says that he's had hits on him before, was like, okay, it doesn't surprise me at all that people try to take him out. And we also learned a few things about him, that he's got something in his background that someone's using against him, maybe some blackmail material happening.
Yeah.
And that he's done some things in his past that are super shady.
Yeah.
And just there were lots of funny beats in the storyline. His new aide, who turned out wasn't against him, but ends up beating him up, and they both make reference, you really enjoyed beating me up. Yep. I sure did.
Yeah.
I thought that was funny too.
The Toth was a fun character, and the whole, where, he says, you didn't enjoy it in the least. She's like, I didn't say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did wonder why she wasn't upset that he killed her father, like that Jakar had destroyed his family.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense.
I don't know. I did love the idea. There is a great line where she says, make something about, I don't even want to speculate what's in your bed. It's not my place to speculate on how anything gets in your bed.
Right. Oh, and the underwear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Garibaldi
funny.
says,
yeah.
Do you look good in purple?
Pink
yeah,
or purple.
And she implies like your obsession with Earth women are just, we don't understand. And that's been, we saw that, remember when he was with the telepath, he goes like, what is your pleasure threshold? Right. So yeah, he's a little bit of a womanizer. I like that.
I got an impression, and I have no idea whether this is the case or not, but it would be funny if he had like rotating aides like every week or whatever, that they just keep getting killed off or something.
I agree, because it was really funny, right? Like that his previous aide, they don't ignore the fact that they've recast it, like, oh, and tragically she ended up being
killed in an airlock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really love that. I love her kind of almost disdain with him. Like, I can't believe I've got to help this guy.
Right. Yeah. It was funny.
So she was very funny. I liked her a lot. I thought it was a little bit of the storyline that the courier ended up not being the courier. It was the assassin, and that whole, it could have been cheesy, but I thought it worked out well. Like, oh, and we're so sorry the courier's delayed. And like, no, the courier's not delayed, and then dun dun dun.
Wah, wah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. The only thing I thought is Jakar's already got an aide in Ver, so why did he get another aide? It was I assume for this episode it was just to establish this relationship between her and the father, so that Jakar would think that she was the assassin. But
yeah, well, that's what they talked about. His previous aide had died in an airlock, so that's why he'd gotten a new aide.
But isn't Ver his aide?
No, Ver is
Lando's
aide.
Right.
Yeah, so each of them have their own. Their aide is always the one from their race. Yes, no, I get it.
It's the names that throw me off.
Yes, it is. It is very
So now all three of the main ambassadors have aides now.
Yeah.
Now that we have
Lanier.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So let's talk about Lanier joining and the whole discussion about he seems to be they give the implication that he's this country mouse going to the city almost, like he's been in this monastery and all of a sudden he's this bustling center. And obviously he has a little bit of Idlewisha with Delenn because they have that really beautiful, you can look up Lanier and it's forbidden. She goes, well, I can't have an aide who will not look up. You'll forever walking into things. Which I thought was very funny.
Yeah.
So thoughts on their relationship, Karen?
Well, I loved seeing Billy Mooney finally joining the cast. I thought he played the role very well. And we were talking about prosthetic for Jakar and his race. And it's cool seeing that there are slight differences in the prosthetics for men and women. What is she, Minbari?
Yeah, that was a little subtle, but it was very I rewatched the episode. I watched it earlier in the week, and then last night I watched it again, and it's very clear that the woman is smooth and his has a peak, and so it was nicely done.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I love those little bits that they don't seem like a lot, but there was a lot of thought put into it, I think.
Yeah.
And I thought he did really well in this role. Just a nice relationship already between the two. And I think that's probably going to deepen. I mean, again, I'm just guessing, but yeah, I like them together, and that she's just so calm and soothing and helping him realize that, she's just a person. I mean, I don't know if they call themselves people or whatever. I mean, they could call themselves flip-flops. I have no idea. But yeah, I thought that was good. And the whole, bowing to the Grey Council member and all that. And then she has to tell him, keep that on the down low, dude. I thought that was good too, because we're being reminded again that she has this connection with the hierarchy of her planet, yet she's serving as an ambassador here, and there's some kind of reason for that. So again, it's just their little poking, I think, to the Great Council.
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating and I think that's one of the mysteries they need to explore on why if the Great Council is that important, and it feels like it is, why is someone in the Great Council at this kind of out of the way? What purpose of that? It seems like from our perspective, right, being an ambassador, depending on where you're the ambassador of, it certainly can be prestigious, but it isn't someone if I could not name an ambassador to any country right now the US has, and he immediately knew who she was and was oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm in the presence of almost royalty, is how she
I would liken it maybe to the Secretary of State versus an ambassador.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone who actually serves in the cabinet to someone who is appointed to go away.
Yeah.
And in this episode, actually, we see that because Jakar is complaining that this is a huge step down for him to come to Babylon 5 and be an ambassador. So I'm guessing it would be for her as well, but she considers this not like a demotion. She considers this something important.
Yeah, so I think that's something for us to look at and keep following. How about you? Any thoughts on our newest, our Lost in Space alumni joining Babylon 5? I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. This was one of the few times where this is the first time I've seen an actor come into a role where I really have a strong mental picture of that actor. So it was a little disconcerting at first because I was kind of seeing from the eyebrows down, I'm seeing Will Robinson, and then from the the forehead up, it's the Minbari makeup and that. So that was a little off-putting, but at first, but I got used to it because I know the other Mira Furlang. I've seen her in other things too, but my picture mental image of her is not as strong. So I got I adapted her to her look here fairly quickly, but this one, it took me most of the episode, and I'm still not sure when I see him again. I'm going to go for a few seconds. Oh, there's Will Robinson. So
sure you are. I mean, I'm guessing you will.
Yeah,
for sure. So,
and that's so iconic.
Yeah.
His Lost in Space role. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Between growing up, it was Star Trek and Lost in Space. So that was a big deal. And you guys have touched pretty well on all the relationship dynamics between the two of them. The re-mentioning of the Grey Council, I have to wonder if that's her interest or on being on the station has something to do with the religious ceremony, which I'm sure we'll get into shortly. So it was nice to see these characters, and this episode was great because almost every character was in the episode except for the doctor, I think. So
we didn't have the doctor or the telepath, I think, are the only.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So it's enriching the world. We're getting some meat on the bones of the framework of the Babylon 5 universe, and there was no jump gate issues.
I don't know if it's a budget thing or if it's because you could have had the doctor just as easily be at each of the ceremonies, right? You could have had him. So I don't know what that is, there's complicated reasons about how many under contracts, your agreement that you have so many episodes and you're paid for. So let's talk about we saw two main religious celebrations could not have been more diverse, which I think is a deliberate choice on their part, right? So we'll start out with the one that it appeared Susan was having a blast at. Like Susan was like, I am into this. If we are having a feast, we are having a possible orgy. They're walking around all these, they have all the different Centauri women are there and they're walking around, and there's just there's the main table. It did look like almost a wedding, a feast,
I would liken it to a bacchanalia. It was. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Veer is having fun, and they are drunk, and poor Jeff and Michael both look like this is not fun, but Susan was having a blast. So any thoughts on our Bacchanalia? I like that they were going there, the Centauri celebration.
Well, it was, I don't know why, but I felt like it was like a scene out of Errol Flynn's Robin Hood or something like that. The banquet with the king and that. So it was it was pretty wild stuff. And I have to tip my hat off to the actor that plays Londo. He just chewed up the scenery with going down the table and then passing out, grabbing all the statues. And and you're right, I was puzzled by Susan's reaction. Like she found everything hysterical because she came across so tightly wound up in the previous episode. So I assume that maybe when she has a drink or two, she loosens up, or she just loves to watch drunk people act like idiots.
Well, it's almost, because also when we go to the Mabari, she seemed to be very engaged in that. So it's like almost she's like, I'm ready to absorb these different cultures. I had talked about a couple episodes when it was Born to the Purple. I had mentioned it in Purple, I'm Stunning. So we got that line, and that was not in the script. He had just came on that, and it was just hilarious. It was just him, this god here, and this is Benzar, god of food, and Mogoth, god of the underworld, and Lai, god of passion, and then all of a sudden just passing out. It's just wow, what a crazy ceremony.
And if you pay attention to what's going on the table when he's crawling across it, Delenn is like moving all her stuff away so it doesn't fall into her lap, and Garibaldi's just staring at him like,
dude, what are you doing?
Right. And of course we saw Ivanova she is really getting into it. And I do remember that she likes in her off time to go to the bars,
right?
So she enjoys probably getting a little loose. This was, the Centauri drinks must be strong because she was really getting into it. And I think Garibaldi's putting up with all this stuff, he's putting up with it. But I think the reason that Sinclair was so distracted was because he kept, and it was a little funny that he was like, no, I don't want to see her. But how's she look?
Yes, that was really well done. Yes. You
can tell. I thought that was good. But he was so distracted by Catherine coming on board. And you notice during that whole thing, he's not paying attention to anything that's happening. And like halfway through, he's like, okay, I'm going to go. And he
exactly.
Leaves.
That was really well done.
And again, it shows Garibaldi's looking out for the captain again, like, because he's the one that tells them that Catherine's there and that. And the other thing with this scene is the mention of this other race from Lando's home planet.
The Zon.
Yeah, yeah.
So whether or not that's going to come back later on. So
yes, what was the Zon's last words?
Oh,
yeah.
That was funny. And while we're talking about Garibaldi, this was something that didn't have anything to do with the storylines, but at the beginning, Garibaldi does like a search on this guy and finds a knife, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he confiscates it. So he talks to another guard.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, that guy looks familiar. And I thought for a minute he was like the doctor from iZombie, like, you know, an older, because he looks kind of like that guy. And I looked him up. He's the guy that says, "Ancient shiny secret, huh?" in those commercials.
Oh, okay.
So I'm assuming that's where I know him from.
Wow.
But that was just a little bit of information I found on IMDb about the guy.
Wow.
So anyway,
I do find it a little bit of hand wave that the whole idea of I wouldn't let the ceremonial blade and him like, I don't care if you're the Easter bunny, you're not bringing into the station. You would have thought there would have been some kind of religious exemption that like if
but
you're
it's a knife.
Yeah, so exactly.
There's not supposed to be weapons. And it was also cool to see like on the wall there were like the warning signs or the whatever, and it looked kind of like, you know, when you're in the line to a ride and they have all that flavor text up on the wall and stuff. It kind of looked like that to me, where it's like, you know, oh, there's 5 different environments, there's warning, you can't have any so I thought that was cool looking.
So if we switch over to the Minbari, and there is available, you can find it, the text, but like it's very, will you follow me into fire, into storm, into darkness, into death? And the 9 said yes. And you're like, okay, who's the 9? What's going on? And this is, you have to think it's deliberate, where they say like, who will bring death? And they show Jakar. Promise of new life, they show Garibaldi. Renewal, cut to Sinclair. So, and then how each of them, how they reacted to the fruit,
to the jelly bean.
Yes. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I thought that was very deliberate, because she went directly to the person and said something, and then directly to the person. And I did notice that she and Sinclair had a little bit of a thing going, and then later they mentioned that, you know, maybe they're married, which I'm hoping we hear more about that. That was something very interesting to me.
Yeah, using my notes, right? And as I always say, after you watch the episode, going to Lurker's Guide is always a thing, but they mentioned that there's a hole in your mind from the gathering. The coincidence of the Minbari surrender when they discover Sinclair. And then during Soul Hunter, Delenn said, I knew you would come. We were right about you. Something is going on with Sinclair and the Minbaris.
Right.
Yeah. And they're, I think it's, I think they're doing a good job of making it, while deliberately,
little seeds.
But not overly hitting you over the head with it. So that was good.
I have a question that for you two about that scene. Does that seem in character with her to do something like that without telling Sinclair ahead the significance of that ceremony? I thought that was a little disingenuous, to say the least.
Well, we don't know if it is a marriage ceremony.
Right.
That's just the herd. It depends. She keeps a lot of secrets. And according, like it said, from birth, they show Londo. Through death and renewal, they show Veer. You must put away side old things, Garibaldi, old fears, old lies, Ivanova, and this is your death, Jakar, the death of flesh. And old lives, obviously, I think has to come with their belief in reincarnation. Right. So I felt good about it, because she is keeping secrets. She's keeping a lot of secrets.
Right. And I think there was a purpose in that, because I know she's hiding stuff from him, but I think she's also going to try and draw things out of him. Like there's something, we know there's something going on with Sinclair and the Minbari. And I think part of this is that she is trying to form a connection with him in order to do whatever needs to be done with him.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Yes, it might be a marriage ceremony, but I think it's more trying to make this connection with him. This kind of. And
also, it was supposed to be a religious ceremony. So a marriage ceremony is, I don't know how, obviously I don't know the context of the religion for the Minbari, but that seems like a pretty specific subset of a religious.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
That's the one that she chose. I don't know.
Catherine does say it could double as a marriage. So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
their religion is all like mixed
Well,
up. And
like in a Catholic, you have a mass that is part of the wedding ceremony, and
Mhm.
so you do that. I do think that it did remind me a little bit of a Catholic mass,
Mhm.
where during the Eucharist, where they're, this is my body, take of
Yes,
this.
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah, so I think that was deliberate.
Yeah. One
Really
other
well
thing
done.
that I had was when they walk into the room, and this to me was like, I don't know if this was a deliberate callback or whatnot, but some of the Minbari had these boards with the bells on them, and they were shaking them.
Yes.
And that was like, to me, it was right out of Amok time from the original Star Trek, when
Yes.
when the one Vulcan lady would say Kreka, and they would go ding, 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 like with
Yeah.
those. So
Yeah.
I was going, those even look like the same props almost. So I got a chuckle out of that when I saw that. And I know people are probably getting sick of me making the original Star Trek
No.
references,
I
but
think that's good.
that's my
Yeah.
touchstone.
Yeah.
no, and I think that's only natural because we're dealing with, I don't want to say lesser, but it doesn't have the same social impact as Star Trek did.
Mhm.
Star Trek was huge, and Babylon 5 definitely has a following and
but
a
it's more like
popularity.
on a Firefly kind of
It's a
level.
little
Yeah.
more underground
Yeah.
than Star
Yeah.
Trek. So it's only natural to
Yeah.
compare.
No offense to any
back.
big B5 fans out there.
No, no,
No,
no.
that's good. I think, yeah.
No, and you mentioned it's like Firefly. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
compliment as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
But-
and also I think that it is easy, as we talked about. This was when this came out, 1994. So we can see things, as we've talked about in this podcast before. There are very few things that are always original.
right.
That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's a ripoff. It just is done.
Mhm.
I did want to share one thing as we're talking about Bill Mummy. J. Michael Straczynski did talk about how well he got along with the cast. And there's that point where Delenn says, "Now tell me of home. I've been away far too long." He ad-libbed off camera during different takes. Beatlemania is back.
Oh,
Millennials, they're everywhere. And his last was, "Well, we just got Pizza Hut and cable."
Yeah, so he definitely brings that veteran
Yes.
TV person to the
Yeah.
show, I think. It's like he slots right into the
Yeah,
show,
he
I
does.
think.
So let's talk about our love story. Catherine is Catherine Sakai. She's played by Julie Nicholson, as you said, was Soul. She's now Julie Nicholson. I love how he calls her Catherine.
Mhm.
It's never Kathy. It's Catherine. And I thought, we have talked about at times, Sinclair can be wood, that
Mhm.
Mhm.
he can play him a little wooden. I thought that they had true chemistry when they're dating.
Yeah.
And the whole
Agreed.
yeah, with this rinse repeat, right? Like we catch up on the academy. I ask about your uncle, you ask about my brother, and then and then when they're going through this, and how's your uncle, how's your brother, and you, because they had set that up, I thought that was very romantic. At the same time, going, "You're gasoline, I'm fire," and every time we get together, it acts bad, but I can't stop.
Right. I can't
attraction.
quit you.
I can't quit you. Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about our love story.
This is the first episode where I did not feel like he was overacting or wooden. I felt like he was very natural through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And especially the romantic.
Yeah.
And the whole build up to it, like I said, where he's just totally distracted and he's like,
Yes.
"No, I don't want to see her."
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, but is she with anybody?
Yeah, exactly.
How's she look?
Yeah, exactly.
So that whole thing was good too.
Yeah. And I love the idea, the commitment, and one of you mentioned Casablanca. Does have a little bit of that, but the idea of this is the first time they've both been available at the same time. And they're like, "Well, try this. The odds are it's not going to work out, but better to love and lost than never loved at all."
But we might have fun.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Before it goes bad. Yeah, I really liked that. And I liked how she came to celebrate with him after getting all this money. And she's like, "Okay, maybe this is a bad idea.
Yes.
Maybe it's horrible." And that's when he's like, "No, maybe not so bad."
Yeah.
That whole chemistry side of things where they were pulling and pushing and pulling and pushing and then finally just giving into it.
Yeah.
definitely very romance tropey,
Yes.
but I think they did it very well.
Yeah. Lou?
Yeah, like I said earlier, it was felt very Casablanca, like riffing off it,
Yeah.
like the dialogue, like talking
Mhm.
about the uncle, the brother, and we've
Mhm.
done this
Yep.
and rinse repeat thing. So that
Yeah.
felt very Casablanca. And I think my other earlier comment that this felt like the most natural episode. A lot of that is
Mhm.
due to the fact that Sinclair comes across very natural in this episode. There's
Mhm.
no
Yeah.
stiffness, and so that's very curious. I'm going to be curious to see how that plays out going forward. And I don't know what the relationship is going to go like with her going forward, because I half expected when she left in the shuttle that it was going to blow up or something, like,
Yeah,
because you know when
exactly,
somebody
right.
when
Same
two
here.
characters get together, it's like they're always
Yeah.
going to kill off the love interest. So I was
Mhm.
really surprised that she was alive at the end of the episode, to
Right.
be honest. So that was good. So I'm looking forward to that. And this is probably one of the things that makes Babylon 5 so attractive to fans, is they don't follow the normal
Right.
1 hour TV format
Mhm.
conventions and kill off
Mhm.
guest characters so that the main character is free to pursue another interest in the next episode. So I like that quite a bit. I'm curious though about the money that she came into. How much was it? It seemed to be
Yeah.
quite a bit from her reaction. And will that be the thing that maybe drives a wedge between them? Because maybe
Mm.
she wants to go do something with
Right.
this money,
Mhm.
and he's committed to the space station. So I really liked it, and I thought this was his best episode by far.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
he definitely has a type. He likes Laura Crofty
Yeah.
women.
Lara Croft. Yeah, that's true. 'Cause
Yes.
the other one was a traitor, right?
Yep.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, and I love the idea that she seems to know, like she says, answer it. Like she knows.
Mhm.
And like when they're laying in bed together, we only have a few more hours till you have to go back to being the commander again.
Right.
And I like their ending where he goes, are we going to get this right this time? And they both go, well,
Mhm.
let's try.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that just jogged my memory. That I really love that little beat, like when they first met, and he took his communicator off his hand and put it in his pocket.
Yeah.
And she
Mhm.
says,
Yeah.
your pants are talking to you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
The
I
pants are
thought that was
beeping.
funny. I thought that was
Yeah,
funny.
I thought
But,
so too.
I also thought that's a weird place to have a communicator, but
Yeah.
on the back of your hand like that, like you could knock it
Mhm.
off so easily, right?
Yeah, but this
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
It's not exactly.
Well, that's a
Bleep,
little. It's a little out of the way.
it's a
though.
little better, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Like your hands are always moving around the environment, touching things. So I
Mhm.
Right.
would think it would knock it off. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And before we started podcast today, recording, we mentioned that Catherine Sakai, the actress, is played by Julie Nixon, who has kind of a connection to Jesse and I.
Mhm.
She was in an episode of Castle where, what did I say? Sorry.
That's okay. I'll edit this out.
Oh, Hedge Fund Homeboys,
Yes.
where they're playing Russian roulette in a park, these teens, and one of them dies. So she plays one of the kids' mother, which
Mhm.
is a pretty, I mean, the parents of these children are pretty prevalent in this episode. So that's the connection between Jesse and I. But she was also in like Rambo and Ready Player One and a lot of other
Yeah.
stuff. So if you recognize her, go look on her IMDb. You'll
Yeah.
find something.
And I think she is very beautiful and
Mhm.
just a very engaging character. I like that she seems to have a little bit of smirk to her.
Mhm.
And I feel like it, and I don't know how, we're going to wait and see how much they give into this, but for right now, it seems like a very adult relationship, and that there could be problems with doing that. So I like it. I like it a lot. All right, let's go to the ending. So I think they're all sitting there waiting, like, what's it going to be? What are we going to do? And I don't know. And then when Sinclair comes, says, okay, we're ready for you now. And he starts introducing, this is blank, blank, an atheist. This is blank, a Roman Catholic. This is a Muslim. And they go through. I think that was a very powerful statement about Earth does not have a dominant religion. In fact, there's a lot of this.
Mhm.
So any thoughts on that? And Lou, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, as I mentioned off the top, when I initially saw the scene, I wanted more. I wanted the other races to react to, like, all these people, because they must be looking at this as, what kind of a religious ceremony is this? And so
Yeah.
that was my initial reaction. But then as the shot continued to pull out, and you saw how the long line of all these different religions and that, I thought, you know what, this is actually visually, I think they're getting across the idea of what they're trying to accomplish with the diversity of the various religions that Earth has. And it made me wonder, is the religions that we saw from the other races, is that really the only religions that they have? Because you tend to, paint a group of people with a broad stroke brush. And I realize in the confines of this TV show and that you probably can't get too complicated, and it's complicated enough without getting into all the various subtypes of that. But it did. The contrast works well because it shows that mankind is quite a varied and unique race. And I was just kind of wondering, like I thought, what is Londo and Jakar and the other races, what are they thinking of humans? Like, boy, these are one bunch of mixed up people. They don't have it. They're not consistent in anything. So, but maybe they think too, well, maybe that diversity is what is their strength. And I think that was what the point of the scene was. So I really liked that. This one worked for me much better than the previous episodes where they just kind of left it hanging. So I was very impressed. And you can't just watch something like that without, dwelling on the context of what's going on in the world today. And it's like, we need more television or movie or stories like this for people to get out of their own skin and see other points of view. So I really found it quite a powerful scene. So I liked it quite a bit, especially in the wake of watching all the crap that was going on with the latest round of sessions that they were doing for interviewing the new judge, which was very it just really got my blood going. So this really touched on a lot of positive thoughts for me, and I really liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, Karen?
I would like to think that after we saw them pull away and it looked like a lot of people, that perhaps there was interactions between those representatives and the people on the ship, whereas we got ceremonies for the others. Maybe this is like a learning. He wants this to be an interactive learning experience. Please mill about, talk to each other, learn about our religions and all that. We don't need a big ceremony to show you what our religions are like. Just talk to each other.
Karen, I hadn't thought about that before, but I would love the idea. And now my mind canon, there was beverages and pastries afterwards, and there was
chips
kind of
salsa,
there was we all met in the fellowship hall afterwards for the social.
Did you bring fruit punch? Oh, you forgot.
There's according to the notes, there were 250 people.
Oh my goodness.
And they were all were that religion. So each of them were that religion. And a kind of note that they O'Hare went through twice. They went through the line twice and he got it by doing it the second time in rehearsal. When they actually filmed it, he was able to remember their names and talk about that. So I like that odd. Another note, two things behind the scenes. The show won an Emmy for makeup design for this episode. So as you guys talked about a little bit, that you thought that the Jakar looked a little more fluid and Membari looked that. Another thing is this episode, when it was first aired, was the same night as the Tanya Harding, Nancy Kerrigan face-off at the Olympics.
Oh, no.
And he said, imagine a silence vast as space. That sound is the Nelson rating meters stuck unmoving. He said, we got creamed by this episode. They got that Nancy and Tanya got a 64 share. So no one watched this episode.
That does not happen today.
Yeah.
There's so much content.
Yeah.
That's a shame because this is truly an outstanding episode.
Yeah. And the line was, I'll see you next Wednesday, was because at the time Babylon 5 was, most places were showing it on Wednesday nights. So that's why he kind of threw that in there. A
little Easter egg.
Yes. All right. What else do we need to visit about?
I think that's it.
Are we gonna hear more about maybe Sinclair's brother?
I do not think so. Okay. I do not remember that.
Because we've had little mentions of him from Garibaldi and now Kath. So
Yeah.
I know we're going to hear more about his role in the wars.
Yes.
But I wondered if we were going to hear more about his person.
Yeah,
as well.
I do not remember.
Okay.
I know. Yeah, I do not think so.
I'm curious if this Catherine character comes back, if there's going to be any scenes between her and Garibaldi, because he obviously knows her. So I'd like to know what their status is, as whether they get along or whatnot.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. And once again, I don't know if they'll do that, because it is kind of a almost a romantic trope to go, okay, don't hurt my friend again.
Right.
Right.
And also the bros talking to each other is a big deal. So like they had conversations about it behind the scenes. Oh, she's not good enough for you. You can do better. I'm assuming there were these things from Garibaldi and
it makes me want to know more about how Garibaldi Sinclair got to know her.
Yep.
Yes, there is. So yeah, I think like most first seasons, they have starts and stops and going, but I think this is one that was very well done. Anything else you guys, we already talked about, any favorite lines you guys want to share? Any famous other thoughts about it?
That's online.
Yes.
That was funny. I like Jakar's little song that he sings while he's cooking the food.
Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah, it is. And just overall, this episode, outstanding.
Yeah. Lou, your thoughts?
No, none of the lines jumped out at me. I mean, I'm looking at the episode summary now and I'm seeing these lines, but I can't really say that. But that one I did say is, I don't mean to alarm you, but your pants are talking. It
was very fun. I also like the when the messenger, who turns out to be the assassin, says, "Are you Ambassador Jakar?"
Oh,
and Jakar, like, this is Ambassador Jakar's quarters. This is Ambassador Jakar's table. This is Ambassador Jakar's dinner. What part of this progression escapes you?
Right.
Yes.
He's just so
snarky.
Dry. Yeah. Dry.
It's interesting how they keep his storyline separate from the rest of the Babylon 5 characters. So I think we've talked about this a little bit in previous episodes. So because I was thinking Garibaldi was in it a little bit, but then he dropped out. I'm going, that doesn't seem like Garibaldi. He's pretty dogged. He wants to get to the bottom of this. So I think they're being a little coy or cheating a little bit, but
and
go ahead.
He was in the whole episode, Jakar. He was at the religious ceremonies and he had little beats and all the ceremonies, but his storyline was where he shone.
Yes.
And so they showed that he was part of the crew, well, not crew, but part of the station hierarchy with all the, him joining in the ceremonies.
Yeah.
But also he's got this other life that no one knows about.
Yeah. And, I did like the way that he and Natoth set up the assassin, where they didn't directly kill him, but they set this up, and there's almost this humor with, I'm sorry you've been out, but to make up for it, I sent a big money on you.
Right.
So
which made it look like he betrayed his contract, which means they will hunt him down and
kill him. And Karen should be happy we got their praying mantis again this episode.
Yes, we did get a praying mantis. Yes.
Yeah. He is so dumb.
He is dumb. I did like the whole with Garibaldi, like, okay, so this guy just showed up in your quarters. Don't know what happened. And you guys mentioned the panties.
And I noticed also, going back through it a second time, the guy that he hires to be his bodyguard that ends up dead in his quarters, he was also at Londo's ceremony.
Oh, okay.
He's in the foreground as they pan into the ceremony. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess they had the makeup on him, so they're going to
get him good. All right. So ratings, Karen.
10 panties.
Ooh. Nice.
I really liked this episode.
Luke?
Gonna give it 8.5 strong nods to Journey to Babel.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I give it 9 household gods. I agree with you, really. And I was tempted to give it a 10 to Karen, but I was like,
there's other episodes
because I know what's coming.
That's what I'm hedging on too.
Things, but I'm sure there's good episodes down the line, and this 10 won't negate that. I mean, I'll give them 10s as well.
Exactly. So. And I think the idea, it was really, really well done. And I do know that they had talked about that they felt like they were hitting this. Right, like, hey, we're figuring out what we want to do, where to go. So I'm great.
Yeah, they did a lot in this episode. It's pretty impressive.
Yep, they packed it without hitting us over
no
the head, like
no dull moments, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more in Catherine, and Lanier is a nice. This is really really nice to see him.
A good introduction
yeah.
to him.
I'm sure that he will be a good device for us getting in behind her Delenn's mindset too. So he'll be her sounding board.
Good. All right. Let's see. Lou, if someone wants to reach you, how can they?
You can find me on Twitter at Lou W. Sitzma or at the Stephen King Podcast. My YouTube channel, Lou's Reviews, up there. Got all my old podcasts. I wish I could find the episodes that we did for Farscape. That sin that we lost those, because that was a great time.
Oh yeah,
as
that
well.
would have been fun to go back to there. Yeah.
And that's it.
Oh, good. And Karen, how about you?
I am at Aleveria, Aleveria, almost everywhere. Twitter, the Twitter machine, as I call it.
Yes.
Not Facebook. I don't go.
Instagram,
the TikTok machine as well, at Aleveria, BookBub, Goodreads, all those places.
Yes.
On Aleveria. So.
Well, I am at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me go on about music on Set Lessig Bruce. You can hear me with Charles Skaggs talking about Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. My buddies and I do How Many, a podcast. And of course, we will be back in 2 weeks talking to two of my favorite people, Lou and Karen, about Babylon 5. Our next episode is Mind War. The Psycorps come back. So a little tease about that. So very nice. All right. Listeners, take care, be safe, go get vaccinated, go get boosted. Let's all be kind to each other, because that's how we're going to get through this. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Karen. We'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
The end.
We did get feedback. Holly Mack sent us an email. She says, "Hey all, what a way to start an episode. Jakar getting a message that one of his nemesis is dying or dead. But the real kicker, Jakar is going to be dead too. I'm already hooked in to see how this plays out. Lando sure knows how to throw a festival. Seeing Jakar paranoid is quite the treat. Why do I sense there's some backstory to be found about Delenn and the Grey Council? Of course, Catherine and Sinclair would have a past relationship. The Toth is a good fit for Jakar. A very enjoyable episode. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin." Thank you, Holly. Loved hearing from you. And if you want to leave feedback like Holly, send an email to jklb5podcast@gmail.com.